like the local is the hook for at least a lot of people, because they see the hungry people in their neighborhood, more so than they, and that's a little bit, and sometimes they are surprised about when they find out that person that they know goes to the food bank to get some extra food support.
This is a podcast called Walk, Talk, Listen. An attempt to connect people and make this world a bit better by sharing opinions and experiences based on the belief that everyone's perspective is true, albeit partial. My name is Maurice Blom, and I would like to welcome you to yet another episode of Walk, Talk, Listen. Good day, everybody. This is another episode of the podcast Walk, Talk, Listen. And this episode is still part of the 11th 100-mile walk. After spending an excellent week in Seattle and its surrounding areas, I'm happy to be back home. The time I spent meeting with various members of the Crop Hunger Walk community was incredibly inspiring. From directors of food banks and shelters, fellow advisors and staff from Seattle University, to co-walkers from all walks of life, members of the Duwamish tribe, and advisors of the CWS Innovation Hub, I can't express my gratitude enough. Although the walk was wonderful, it was also painful. On day 2, around 10 miles in, the small trek around the Seattle University soccer field, I experienced a pinching pain under my left foot. And although it went away after mile 15, the pain returned in the evening. For the rest of the week I had to take a lot of painkillers just to walk a couple of miles before needing another dose. Nevertheless, I was able to complete a 100-mile walk on day 5 for the 11th time, and I'm really happy with that. However, it turns out this pain in my left foot really requires 4 to 6 weeks of rest. Even walking barefoot is difficult, and it experienced pain while lying down. Luckily, the special soles that I purchased have been helpful, allowing me to shuffle around the house with my shoes on. The Crop Hunger Walk slogan, "We walk because they walk," resonates deeply with me, and now maybe even more than ever. In developing countries, people, mostly women and girls, have to walk up to 4 miles a day just to fetch water. In Africa, this distance can be as high as 10 miles. While my left foot may hurt, I'm fortunate to have the ability to rest for 4 weeks, have only walked for 5 days, and not having to walk 4 or 10 miles a day, continuously. I'm grateful for the work of my colleagues and partners around the world who tirelessly work with local communities to make the world a better place. If you would like to support my 11th 100-mile walk, please visit tinyurl.com/MauriceBlom 100-mile 2023. And now it's time for today's podcast episode that was recorded during the 100-mile walk last week. The audio is not as it normally is, but I still think, I still hope that you find it worthwhile listening to, because we had 2 awesome women who we interviewed at the West Seattle Food Bank. As always, they will introduce themselves.
My name is Fran Yeatts, and I'm the Executive Director here at the West Seattle Food Bank.
And I'm Elise Johnstone, and I'm the Rector of St. John the Baptist Episcopal Church here in West Seattle.
And so how are the 2 of you related, right, in terms of the work that you do and the service?
The church, St. John's, has supported the food bank for as long as I've been here, which is 22 years.
Yeah.
I remember the person who I replaced, she's like, "Oh, and this is St. John's Church. They're a really big supporter of the food bank." So yeah, they've been very helpful.
Yeah.
And I respect the work that Fran and the West Seattle Food Bank do immensely. So St. John's, I would say our most regular contribution is financial. we make a way for people to designate some of their giving to the West Seattle Food Bank, and so then we send that on, and then we also make church-wide donations from time to time. And then the other thing we do, as I mentioned earlier, is we have an urban community garden where we have raised garden beds along a parking strip, essentially. We're not talking about a lot of space, but we grow beans, kale, oh gosh, there's all kinds of stuff, and all of it comes here.
That's great. And since when has the church been doing that? Do you know?
I think it's been several years. So I've only been with the church about a little more than a year and a half, but I get the sense that they've been doing that for maybe a decade, maybe longer. I don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long the growing garden has been.
Yeah. I think I get the sense 5 years at least, but maybe as close to 10. It's and then of course the other thing is that we have connection through is with Church World Service. So I have known Crop Walk since I was first ordained back. Well, that's getting further and further ago, and have been active with Crop Walk. For not quite close, well, getting on to 20 years with congregations in the state of Kentucky. And so when I was contacted by a person from Church World Service asking, did St. John's want to consider having a crop walk this past year, I reached out and said, hey, how many folks have you done that before? And they said, oh yeah, some of us have. And so we got up a small team, and we're all still emerging out of COVID, but we had a team and did a walk around Hiawatha Park up in North Admiral. People said we had people who stopped us because we carried the stop hunger one step at a time, and people said, what are you protesting? We said, we're not. Well, unless we're protesting hunger, but we are raising awareness, and then we were able to share that 25% of what we raised was coming here to the local food bank, and people were like, oh, that, and then the other money goes to help hungry people and people in need throughout the world. So that would be the three ways I think that.
So I'm surprised to hear that you were able to have a walk in person, because I thought you were walking. A lot of the walks have been virtual the last 2 years, but you were walking.
We did a physical walk this past fall. So, and then the hope is that we would have another physical walk this fall. So,
and with that walk, was that other churches outside of
Fauntleroy UCC was the other. So it's Fauntleroy, and as I would say, also very good crop walk supporter. And so that's Fauntleroy United Church of Christ. And I think I get the sense that maybe they've even been having the walk maybe longer.
Oh yeah, there's been crop walk going on in West Seattle since I started here. I think there's a coalition of churches called the West Side Interfaith Network, WIN. So within West Seattle, that group is fairly active and has usually, within that coalition has organized a walk in West Seattle. So that was going on for a long time, and then some churches in Greater Seattle started doing the walk.
So Green Lake area, I think. WIN hasn't been coordinating the walk, at least recently, but still, both Fauntleroy and we are both very active in WIN. So.
That's great. Fran, I would like to go to you. So for a couple of decades now, you have been part of this food bank here. Why? Tell us about how did that start, and why are you involved?
Well, I had been in social services for a while, and I took a little break from that and did some other things, and then just was considering my next step in career, and I really like thinking about food, and I thought about some, like maybe doing my own business, but then I also really like being in social service, and there was a job for an executive director at the West Seattle Food Bank. So I applied, got that job. We only had 2 staff at that time, and the board had plans to do a capital campaign and build a new building, this building we're in. So I was a little nervous about that amount of work, but just had a great board, and we also partnered with the nonprofit that owns the housing part of this, because they do housing, and so together we actually raised funds for this building and a couple other buildings. And the agency's just grown, and there have been new programs that we've developed and just expanded and improved how we do services over the years. So it's always kept me really interested. Yeah. So now we have a whopping 12 staff, and
many
still
volunteers,
small.
right? You're mentioning many volunteers as well.
Yeah, and about 500 volunteers, but still, it's and we put a lot of the funds that we raise into purchasing food to make sure we have that full array of food. In March of 2020, right as the thick of COVID was happening, we merged with another agency called the West Seattle Helpline, and they do financial assistance for folks who are at risk of being evicted or have past due utility bills, or need money to move into a place. And Helpline historically also had what's called the West Seattle Clothesline, which is a clothing bank that's located in another location. So we merged, so the agency, that was a big change to this small agency, and especially given the timing, happening right as everything was just drastically switching due to COVID. Our agency also, it added quite a bit of services, what we were providing to the community. So the job has just always kept me interested. West Seattle is just an amazing community. People really feel a strong sense of community here, really want to support neighbors. So, our tagline is neighbors helping neighbors, and it really feels like kind of, in my job, you really get to see quite a wide variety of folks in the community, which I really like, and it's just always kept me interested.
Yeah, and are you originally from this area, or were you born somewhere else?
I was born in Detroit.
Okay.
So I came out here and went to college out here, and a couple other things. So I've lived way longer in the Seattle area.
Okay. Hey, Fran, recently, the White House came up with a new strategy, national strategy on hunger, nutrition, and health. And it was really a result of a bipartisan effort, which is great. At the end of the day, of course, the strategy has been developed to end hunger in the U.S. As Church Service, we're trying to tell people that the strategy is there, and we need to make use of the strategy to ultimately, reach the goal of ending hunger. If I ask you, to give me, a message back to Washington, to the Hill, to tell there, what is it? What is the message that you think I should convey to, people Church World Service works with, on both sides of the aisle? How are we going to solve this hunger?
Well, I think, I guess I see 2 prongs to that. One is the immediate need of families. So we just need to have the resources so folks can get adequate nutrition easily. So, that means supporting things like SNAP benefits and the TFAP, federal commodities, and having the infrastructure for agencies that are doing that food distribution to, look at new ways to get food out to the community. Home deliveries, just making sure that folks are served in a multitude of ways. So getting food and providing that emergency assistance. But then we also just have to do everything we can to kind of keep people out of poverty so they do not have to rely on our services. And I think most of us who are in this and passionate about this would love it if we weren't needed, and so making sure that folks have that safety net that they need and that folks have a livable wage, because we serve a lot of families that are working and they are just not making it. Cost of living is just really high and it's really hard.
Elise, you have been very familiar with the Crop Hunger Walk, not only in this area but before that as well. If I would ask you, what attracts you to the Crop Hunger Walk? Can you explain that? And then if you would have the opportunity to tell Church World Service, well, if you guys could do this, that would really bring it to the next level. What would that be?
So I think the thing that truly actually is the most attractive thing about Crop Hunger Walk for me is the fact that dollars stay locally. I also very much appreciate and have worked with refugee resettlement, more through Episcopal migration ministries, but still worked with refugee resettlement. So I also appreciate the other parts of the dollars and the work that those dollars do. But I think being able to help people in the congregations where I've served, to be able to say, when you do this, you're getting money for the West Seattle Food Bank or the White Center Food Bank, or back in Kentucky it was for God's Pantry, and so and people that helped connect people to a local mission and a local need. And then I think then there was the sort of this positive benefits of helping people understand some of the national and international work that Church World Service was also doing. That was, so I think like the local is the hook for at least a lot of people, because they see the hungry people in their neighborhood, more so than they, and that's a little bit, and sometimes they are surprised about when they find out that person that they know goes to the food bank to get, some extra food support. So I feel like that has just been a huge draw for me, is that local food support. Well, I'd love it if Church World Service could solve hunger. That would be great. But I also recognize that's a big ask. I would say to keep doing the good and faithful and excellent work that CWS is doing. I would say just yay, keep at it. I really appreciate that CWS was very adaptive during the pandemic and has continued to sort of adapt from there. I'm really glad that we have a local contact. I know she's based in Spokane with Church World Service. One of the challenges that we have as we're coming out of COVID, at least as a congregation, is that the people who are around most of them are already doing a lot, and so the coordination of the walk, it would be, just the more coordination support I think could be helpful for us on the ground. Yeah. But I'm stretching a little bit. Just so you know, I was like, what could I ask for Church World Service to do? So I'm struggling a little bit about what more to say, but I do know that that's something that
could use some extra help.
Yeah, we use a little extra help, and Tiffany's doing a great job. So I think it's sort of like how there's absolutely the providing of resources, but then what does that look like? Is it maybe having, is it possible to have somebody come and talk closer to the time that the crop arc is happening, where, so that, those kinds of things.
You know what, a question on the podcast that I always ask, and to be fair, the people that I talk with on my podcast always get, forewarning that I'm going to ask this question, but I'm going to ask you both the question anyway, is that if I ask you to come up with a piece of music or a song that best embodies what you are about, what song or piece of music would that be, and why?
Wow.
Who wants to go first?
I'm at a loss.
Take your time.
Well, I can tell you the first thing that comes to mind for me is one of my favorite, one of my favorite hymns. Mm-hmm. So, and then as soon as I said that, I was like, oh, is that one my favorite? Or is the other one my favorite? But, and that's, it's called St. Patrick's Breastplate. And it basically, I bind unto myself today the strong name of the Trinity. And it helps me remember that God is, for me, is God in relationship. God is in relationship, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And I think that reminder of relationship is, we're not ever believers by ourselves. We're always in relationship with fellow parishioners, with agencies like the food bank and the helpline. We are never islands unto ourselves. We are always in relationship, and I think we can do what God calls us to do more faithfully when we do it in partnership. So,
thank you.
I did not know where that came from.
Fran.
I am really at a loss. I don't know. John Lennon, Give Peace a Chance, came to mind.
Hey, that's a good one.
But it's certainly related, because certainly I also believe that we don't, do this alone. I mean, people often thank me for my work, but it's like we're all in this together. It's not me, it's all of us.
Something else that I started to ask my guests more recently is about simple act of kindness. And there is, I think it's on CBC or CBS, there's a program now that they are looking at, what is the strengths of a simple act of kindness and the potential for rippling effect. Mm-hmm. And I've got two questions around that for you. Is, what do you think about a simple act of kindness? Do you believe in the power of that? And then the second part of the question is, if I ask you this week to do a simple act of kindness, what would you do?
So, go ahead.
Well, I certainly believe in the idea of a simple act of kindness, because I think just showing compassion and being understanding of the fact that folks are in different circumstances is really important. So just being open to understanding that is so important. And I think simple act of kindness is just saying hello to someone who, you might not normally say hello to, or smiling, or just doing that small extra thing. I mean, we have our hours at the food bank, and people are always running in after that time, and our staff is always just like, okay, but hang on, let me grab you some food, and then here's some, you can come back to it. So there's lots of different ways to show that simple act of kindness, but
yeah, I would absolutely agree. I think that what I often say to folks is that the needs of the world can be completely overwhelming. If you think about the issues of poverty and addiction and mental illness, I mean, war, greed. If you start to think about, it can just be overwhelming, and you can just kind of want to crawl up in a ball and just hide, because it can be overwhelming. And what I will share with folks is that if we take that first step and we do that one thing, and if that is that, oh my gosh, I have 2 boxes of Nutri-Grain bars, I'm going to put one in the box for the donation for the food bank, or in we have a little free pantry at the church. That can make a huge difference in the day of one or more people. And so don't get overwhelmed by what you can't do. Start with what you can. And I think a lot of times simple acts of kindness are those first steps of, well, not just first, ongoing steps of, I'm not going to let the massive weight of the world overwhelm me and keep me from acting because I can't make a difference. And I think the more people who follow that simple act of kindness or take those steps, I think let's just say, I think it's going to make a positive difference. And I would love it if the White House could implement a complete strategy that helps us to eliminate hunger. But I think simple acts of kindness, especially partnered with very positive and effective systemic change, man, that would be great. But did I answer the question?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, good.
But both of you did not answer the second part of the question yet.
Oh.
And that is, if I ask you this week, to do a little simple act of kindness, what would you do this week?
I think it's just going out of my way to make sure that someone knows that you care. Whether it, just simple hello or smile or just offering something outside of what we normally do.
Okay.
I would agree. I feel like this is going to come across maybe not exactly the way I intended, and I realize this is being filmed, so now I'm super like, oh, should I say that? But I feel like folks come to the church in situations of need on a regular basis, and so I get a lot of opportunities, I think, and I would imagine that you all get a lot of opportunities here to undertake simple acts of kindness and trying to show respect. I'm not going to be able to solve all the issues that a person has when they come to the door, but trying to make sure that they know that I respect them as a person, sharing some time, a smile, kindness, and then appropriate support. I get those opportunities all the time, and I don't always take them up as the way that I should, but I try to take up as many as I'm able.
My last question is, what is that a question that I should have asked you that I didn't?
Well, this is not maybe a question that you haven't asked, or you should have asked that you didn't. But I do think about the other things that affect hunger, and so addiction, mental illness, and more, abuse of power, you name it. And so I think about. I think it was Archbishop Desmond Tutu quoted, I believe, a proverb that said, yes, we should pick up the people who have fallen into the river, but we should go upstream and find out why they're falling in the river. And so what are the aspects of systemic change? And again, so why, how can we provide more mental illness support? As a society. And so what is, especially when you go talk to the White House, I think that's where I'm coming from on that one. I was like, why am I talking about this? Those other aspects that absolutely contribute to hunger and poverty. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would second that in that, the issue of hunger there's that immediate need, but why is there that need here in the United States, especially? So it does seem like there's ways that we could work more effectively on making sure that everyone has, at a minimum, the nutrition that they need.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm laughing, and Diana was also laughing because I often talk about the parable of the babies in the river. so
Oh, good.
And 2 days ago, he said the exact same thing.
Because we are so busy with the now, with the downstream stuff, and of course it's important. I mean, as you said, Fran, in one of the answers, we need to address the needs now, but at the same time, you also need to look at the system. So that's a lot what I try to raise in the podcast as well through my guests, and I often refer back to the Sustainable Development Goals, because I think as a world it's not perfect, but at least as a world we have agreed that there are 17 goals there that we should solve before 2030, and SDG 2, Sustainable Development Goal number 2, is end hunger. Number 1 is end poverty, but the whole framework is based on the concept of everything is related, right? You cannot solve hunger without looking at poverty or inequality, gender, name it. So I absolutely appreciate what you're saying. I hope that's one message that this 100-mile walk, but the podcast by itself as well is conveying. Through my voice, but more importantly through the people I talk with on a weekly basis. So thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Thank you so much for opening up your house and showing us around. And
thank you for all of the work both of you do. I mean, it's all of us working together in our different ways. So
I'm going to share that thanks with the people of St. John's, because I don't deserve a whole lot.
For me, it's the same. So. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Walk, Talk, Listen. Please check us out on 100mile.org or follow us on Facebook or Instagram.